Still chasing that house up in Maine?
I want the home that Nia wanted.
Do you see why the rich have all the money?
How do you think I got to where I am? Is the house, the cars, the girls?
Their stocks are trading at infinite.
Hey, Amy, right?
Jesus, James, where are you?
It says here you were late last week.
Hello everybody, I'm Julian Lowenthal, the director, producer, and co-writer of the film Money Game, which is going to be streaming on Tubi for free starting tomorrow, as well as will be available for rent and purchase on Amazon. I'm joined today by the very powerful, passionate, great, incredible actor and activist NAHEEM GARCIA, who's been on many different films that you've seen, from Free Guy, The Holdovers, and many more, including Money Game. Welcome, NAHEEM. Great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Hey man, it's been too long, and I'm very happy to start Inside Money Game, the podcast getting to get an inside scoop of the film that we made, with today being the first episode. So I gotta start by saying, you know, of all the actors I've worked with on Money Game, I've worked with you on the most films.
Really? Yeah, we've done what, 2, 3?
4.
4.
So we did A Ring for Christmas.
A Ring for Christmas.
Didn't know you then.
Right.
Got a little close to you on The Sleepover.
Sleepover.
Which I knew immediately, man, because like that's where I met you. I met you. You guys were doing this school. You were the music teacher.
I was a music teacher.
First time I saw you, man, it's like, without knowing you, you had an aura. I'm like, dude, this dude's a spiritual person that just has a lot.
Thank you.
Like, you're a great performer, but what I think so three-dimensional about you is you're not just an actor. You're a person. You're a spiritual person that has a lot to say, has a lot to give, has a lot to entertain us, but you're an educator as well as an entertainer. And I could tell from that moment. Then we worked, I believe so, A Ring for Christmas, The Sleepover, then Free Guy, which I got to tell you, that was an experience.
That was that's how you spend the money.
That's how you spend the money.
That's how you spend the money. That was a big project.
And then it was a dream come true, and I got to get you, I would say, very last minute, because we had all these different things moving along, and we needed to get the perfect professor for Money Game, which I got to tell you, there's so many phenomenal actors out there, but just like every film, getting the right exact fit can be challenging. And I would say the professor was one of those roles. And when you came, and I didn't know, and the fact that you were available, the fact that you were able to swoop in and just become this role that, hey man, to this day, it just it lightens my heart, and it just makes me feel so good. Not just myself, but the other people involved, being like, you are the professor.
I am Gardner.
You are Professor Gardner.
I was memorizing those lines while I was working on The Holdovers.
Yes, so tell me, so talk about that, because I remember those phone calls. I'm literally like talking to you, like I just had a long day, I'm at lunch, and we were talking, just conversing over the dialogue. How was that?
I was in, we were in Deerfield Academy. I'm in a classroom, actually, a theater classroom that has all these books and everything. There's this big white board, or it was a chalkboard. And I started to do Money Game dialogue, because I'm talking about, you know, money and the points, and that's where, and I had a lot of time in that room, and I think I memorized the first chunk of Money Games while I was waiting to go do my scene. And I believe that night was I was shoveling snow, which is the opening scene in The Holdovers, or I was doing my last scene where I was putting the mop and bucket in front of them. But it was one of those scenes. And it was tough, because even though in The Holdovers I had a nice big part, Money Games was a bigger part, a lot more dialogue, a lot more monologue, a lot more, and I wanted to make sure I got it right. I wanted to, you know, because I'm like economic professor, I'm like, I can't even keep 2 cents in my pocket. Now I gotta be the guy teaching young people about this. But I did get the message. The message was about making sure that the people got the information, and that the information didn't get lost somewhere, right? Or I'm living off of my Wall Street winnings and whatever. Meanwhile, the local individual that could use this information is not getting it. And I also felt deep about the passion that Gardner had. And when he finally did get that 1 or 2 people that wanted this information he had, he flourished and he empowered him. And thus we know the rest of the story. If you haven't watched it, watch it.
I also got to say, it's very fascinating. So Chris Galizio and myself, Chris Galizio is the executive producer, and me and him, when we first sat down, it was very important that we made a story that not only highlights the financial situation that we're all dealing with, but is a story from the heart. He really wanted to show his financial message, and I really wanted to show my message of go after your dreams. And I feel very strongly that it does that very well. But your character was paramount to this process. Your character both was the educator, was the person that's meant to guide the audience, guide our main character, James, played by Daniel Washington, guide the audience, but also guide them in a way that we want to be guided. So many people have opinions, and a lot of us don't know what is right, what is wrong. And one of the things that I loved is how much you not only embraced the character, but the love that just showed from that. The fact that people had to listen to you. They're like, oh man, anytime you spoke, it's like, stop what you're doing. What this man has to say is not just education, it's not just entertainment, but it's from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
It's real.
A friend of mine who is very good with finances, he said that's what your character was saying in Money Game. He saw Money Game at the opening at the festival, and he saw it with me again, and he loved it. And he loved it, and he loves Professor Gardner because he understood. He understands numbers and he understands money. And he said he told me that the other day. He said that's what Professor Gardner was saying about this. And I'm like thinking in the back of the head, listening to him, thinking about what Chris said to me about this movie is going to be very important. It is setting a financial message about what is actually happening in the world. And when he confirmed that the other day, so to hear you say this right now, it's like, yeah, the movie did hit, and it hit somebody that was smart. My friend's very smart and very generous and very, 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 very clear. If he doesn't like something, he doesn't like it. He loved it, and he loved the message. So as long as that was happening, we did our job.
And that means a lot to hear from me, man. To hear from you, that means a lot to me. And I just got to say, wow, because just like you said earlier, Chris literally comes from Wall Street. He spent decades there. I'm not a finance guy. I'm learning the game, and Making Money Game has taught me a lot about the finance game. But just like you, the fact that we didn't know, the character had to literally educate us in a way that didn't just go over our head. And one of the things I loved about your performance is not only do I personally feel like I understand finance more, but I just feel you were able to say it in a way that we can understand, not in ways that include, I'm just speaking for myself. There's a lot of terms that just go right over my head, and then I check out. And one of the things that's very important to make Gardner with the fact that he could speak to the general public, to people like myself who don't know, finance the way that Chris does. And not only do I love what we did to create the character to allow him to, speak to the average person like myself, I would say, but I love the way that you just embodied it. And everything you said, I just am like, I want to hear more. And the amount of people that have echoed that, and they're like, we want more Gardner. We need Gardner in our life.
I learned quite a bit about the world through Gardner, especially World War II. What happened in Germany and what happened with the finances and how we are currently in the same situation. That's what I was getting out of Gardner. Like, I didn't understand. And it allowed me to dig into that whole World War II. And financially, I didn't know where Germany was. I didn't know what happened with World War I that made World War II happen as well, because I didn't know the finances. When I started to understand the finances, started to understand inflation, because this is what Gardner taught me. How, what's going on with the inflation? What's the Fed's doing? Why do people go to war? Why do people go to war? Finances. If you need to generate money, have a war, right? And not only have a war, but the amount of money that we're printing, what is the value of that? We're all walking around here with a lot of money, but that money, the dollar bill, at that time when we were doing Money Game, to the rest of the world was losing value. And it still is losing value. Hopefully that might change. I don't know. But I learned quite a bit about finances with Gardner and the world. So it was not just educational. Let me put it this way: it wasn't just priceless to teach or to say these lines and to be about it, but it's priceless to learn. Like, I learned a lot from Gardner, and I wanted to make sure that when I delivered Gardner, who, by the way, we should mention, is based on Chris. You know, and my partner, she was very proud of one thing. She applauded y'all for making sure that not only did you have two good actors, but you had two black actors playing roles that they usually wouldn't play. I'm portraying a white person. Daniel was portraying a single father who wasn't a beat up and he was actually a nurse doing something with his life, taking care of his kids. It was, you know, it was just a very positive image about black men. Not that it was making a point about us being black, but it was just nice to see two black actors playing this role, and we weren't talking color. You just saw the actors and you saw what the message they wanted to send. And I applaud you both for that, because that was big. That was big. I mean, Chris could have got somebody that looked like him, you know, and knew the numbers. But when you guys came to me and we did the reading, and I won't lie to you, the first time I read the script, I couldn't stop reading it. You know, Daniel, I was just touched by those moments that Daniel was having. And as a father, I related. I related very much to the pain of wanting to do more for your kids and feeling like you can't. And not only feeling like you can't, but finding yourself being stigmatized, you know, being put in a category that you didn't belong to, being treated a certain way, not just, you know, Money Games addressed it without addressing it, right? Daniel was being addressed a certain way. And no one said anything about color. We knew, we felt, but it was about his status. Because that's the other thing. We're so caught up with color that we forget that there's still a status. Even though the current situation is looking like you, they're not looking at all of you the same way. They're looking at who's got the money. The real color is money. The real color is green. And that's really what's wrong. That's really the power today. That's really what's controlling the world today. I mean, you have Black and Latino people that have a lot of money that get to sit at the table and have a conversation. They're not going to be treated like you and I, right? Because today's world is, you know, we think it's a black and white. Yeah, black and white is there, but it's really money and status. And I think Money Game pointed that, because somebody thought they had status and they had money, and they were the worst. They were the worst. The gentleman playing, my friend down here playing, what was his name? What was the character's name?
Bryson.
Bryson. He was the worst. He was the worst. It wasn't about color. It was about his money, his status, and his power, and the abuse of power, and the fact that he abused power, and he didn't care. He didn't care about nobody. He didn't care about nothing. He cared about his money and his power. And to connect what's going on with today's temperature, nobody cares about us. They care about their power and how they use their power, and the fact that they could abuse this power and get away with it. That's what's scary. That's what's scary. And, you know, I've been watching a lot of World War II stuff since Money Game to learn about financial system in the world. And as I watched what that dictator at the time was doing with his group of people, and I'm watching the current temperature of our government today, and I'm going, this is scary. This could be a very serious problem at any given time, at any given moment. When you start taking away rights, when you start saying it's okay to not read certain books because they're educational. I mean, this reminds me of slavery. Slaves couldn't read. Now you're starting to take books away. What's next? No one could read. You know, what's next? You could only have a job doing this, domestic stuff, and that's it. You know, and what's next? You don't have to get paid to do the job. You're just going to do it because that's it. And what does that remind you of? A time and period in the United States and in the world where slavery was real, and it's still real to this very day in other parts of the world. So Money Game taught me quite a bit.
And I just want to say, you know, unfortunately, money and status, I feel we really are in the day and age where it's like, especially in America, hey man, no matter how good or bad you are, if you have X amount of money, you can get X amount done regardless of your past history. And you know, history is a big part of Money Game, like you brought up, and I'm just very concerned that we're not only repeating history, but repeating it even worse than history in some elements. And it's just concerning. And you know, movies are meant to be entertaining, and I fully believe that I'm just hoping through the entertainment of Money Game, people can see ways that they can survive, they can succeed, they can win and not give up in these very challenging times that I just feel let me just make this very clear. The majority, the 99.9999% of us are getting crushed, and I just think we all need to find ways to come together, to be a team, to stop marginalizing, to stop dividing and separating. And I'm really hoping that Money Game can show that, regardless of, what your beliefs are, where you come from. Understand at the end of the day, we're the 99%. Let's stop giving our power to them. Let's come together. They're dividing us. They want us to not like each other, whether it's about the color of our skin, who we voted for, what our favorite color is. It's like, they're doing that for a reason. The more we have issues with each other,
the more we separate.
And the more they stay on top.
The more they divide and conquer.
0.001% control everything, and we let them. Which is why I'm really hoping we can move in the direction to be a team. And with a team, we got the numbers. Now, I want to go back to something you said that I find very interesting. You said you were playing white roles, and I just got to tell you, one of the things from a very early on beginning stage of the script process, I was very adamant, I want this to be primarily a black cast film. Not because I'm like, I want black actors to play white roles. That's just what I saw. I'm like, this needs to be told that way. And I can't really elaborate why, but I follow my heart. And that's something that I've always done since I was a kid. And sometimes my heart just says stuff that I can't explain. And very early on, I just felt very strongly about that. But I want to be very clear. I didn't feel, hey, I want these actors to play white roles. I'm like, this is what I picture. This is what I feel needs to be done.
So let me clarify. Maybe it's the opportunity to play non-traditional parts. It's what we call in theater non-traditional casting, right? You're casting somebody who traditionally not play that role. And the fact that you saw me, the actor, and not saw me, let me take the opportunity to get this guy in so I can get my DEI off, right? It wasn't about that. But what I meant by saying that is that we applauded you because of whether you knew it or not, how it worked out was beautiful. And the fact that you had these two black men that weren't shooting each other, dogging each other, cheating and running around. They were trying to figure out how to uplift themselves. And the reality of life, Gardner wanted to uplift the people that wouldn't have these opportunities. And the fact that he left Wall Street to come back and feed them. What happened in Wall Street? What happened to him up there in Wall Street that made him walk away from a lot of money and in certain status? He was, based on the text, Gardner probably was very close to being part of the 1%. And something happened. Something clicked and said, this is not it. I got to go back and make sure that people get this information. And I like that about Gardner. Made him feel like he was a superhero, even though he didn't have a cape, but he did have the knowledge. And he brought it back to the folks, and it didn't matter. I mean, he could have went to Harvard, he could have went anywhere, right? But he went to a community college, out of all things. You go from Wall Street to a community college. Shoot, what happened? It'll be interesting to find that out one day if the opportunity would occur to have Gardner's story be told, because you want to know why somebody at that level, on a Wall Street level, decides to say, I'm walking away and I'm gonna go teach a community college. Not one of the top 3 or 4. He went to a community college in a very rural part of the world. He wanted to make sure that the people really got the information, and that was attractive to me. And I thought that was a very big responsibility as an actor to deliver that. I felt very good. It was very hard at the beginning, and there was a lot of dialogue that I wasn't used to doing on film. Plays is one thing, but in film, and the fact that you guys worked with me a lot, and you were very serious about making sure that I got everything I needed to deliver this character and deliver those lines. Sometimes I felt rehearsal. I may have rehearsed my performance, right? You're rehearsing and going over and that last rehearsal might have been the the performance, and damn, you know.
I would argue the performance that you gave me, and I am a perfectionist, was better than anything I've ever seen. So as much as your rehearsals were very profound, what you delivered on screen, that was it. That was the one.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Thank you. It was very satisfying. I'm very proud of it. Very proud of the work, and I was very proud of the story. You know, there's always that those little issues about, well, that could have been taken out, or that could have been done. But at the end of the day, the story needed to be told, and it got told. It got told. Thus, you can see it Friday.
Yeah, tomorrow it will be out.
Actually, yeah.
Now, was Money Game, of all the roles that you've done, was that the most challenging in terms of, like you said, all the dialogue, the amount of dialogue you had to memorize, but also understanding a subject that we both were learning about while we made the film? Was Money Game the hardest role, or have you had more challenging roles in your past or present?
Money Game was the beginning of challenging roles. How about that? Money Game, once I did Money Game, then other roles were coming in that were just as challenging, even though the holdover of that character wasn't challenging as far as he had to be a professor, but he was living in a community for a long, long time, working in an institution for a long, long time, where it was just him and the chef, right? In this community, the only two. So that was challenging, but I think Money Game, as far as dialogue, subject matter, and I mean, it was a big role. It was what, 44 pages, 16, something like that. 43 pages, 16. I mean, that was a big for me, right? I haven't done anything like that in film, and the opportunity to be a co-star and to help carry this film was a big responsibility. And I just wanted to make sure that I delivered it. Even though I watch myself, which I don't like watching myself, as a stage actor and transitioning into film, sometimes I felt I was a bit big when I should have been a little more small. That's just technical stuff as far as filming and acting for film. Because stage actors, we have a tendency to be very big. With film, as Carolyn Pickman told me, less is more. And so sometimes I watch myself and say, I could have been a little less, and I'm always going to criticize my performance. But as long as you and Chris and the rest of the world were pleased, I did my job, and that's satisfying.
Hey man, we're on the side of the more. We want more.
More, and I would love to give more, and I look forward to the opportunity to give more. And I think right now in my life, especially after Money Games, a lot of different things have happened that have seasoned me enough to be able to give more.
What was your favorite part of working on Money Game and being the professor, and what do you feel you would have changed or done differently in any aspect of the film?
The professor's dialogue with the classroom was fun, and I'm a teacher, so that was fun. But the intimate moments with Daniel, and those intimate scenes, and really having a bond, and that was really tender and nice, and I enjoyed that. That was wonderful. For me, for Money Game, I think Bryce's character was excellent. I wasn't applauding the sexual and the drug thing, because we all know that. I felt it was taking a little bit from the story, but I also know that it's needed in today's society because somebody wants to watch that. We got to give everybody a little something, unfortunately. So for me, the sex stuff could have just been quick and gone. It could have happened, just didn't need to happen as long as it did for me, because I think the story was very focused on reaching your dream. But at the main time, when you have dream, and this is what I did get out of it after a while, when you do have your dream come true and you have your money and your power, and then you turn around and you do that with it, was like, see, you don't deserve that power, you don't deserve that money, you don't deserve that success, because all you're doing is exploiting people, using people, mistreating, which is what Bryce did. That was exactly what the character was in place to remind us, this is what you shouldn't do when you get these opportunities. So by the time we get to the end, that's what you do and that's what you want, right? Because we knew that he was going to be responsible. I think Bryce's character wasn't responsible, and I think you exploited that very well. You showed that he was not responsible, he was not cool, he was abusive, He had opportunity to change the world, and he decided to just be a dog. Be a dog, be abusive, be irresponsible, be addictive, mistreat women, use them for whatever he wanted. He wasn't trying to make a family with none of them. So after a while, it took me a minute to say, you know what, that is important to see. And it was important to see. For me, I just didn't want it too long. But then again, that's me as a dad and as a family man. But then as I looked and watched it again and again, I said, yeah, it's important to see what people in his position and in his station would do, and would do at any given time, all the time. There was no break with Bryce. And it kept going down. But the best part about it is that he was his own problem. He became his most dangerous problem. And he was the end to his own demise. He was it. He was the poison. He was a poison to play. I mean, the man's walking with his kids to go watch a basketball game. Come down here, I got these women down here. Come on. What, are you supposed to leave his kids and go? I mean, this is the world we're in. We have people like that. So I don't know, that's the only thing I would have changed. But other than that, I think the movie is beautiful. I think the message is beautiful. I think the direction was great. I think the support that most of us got, at least I got, I can't speak for everybody, that I received was just, it was wholesome, it was beautiful, it was needed, it was welcomed, because I just wanted to do a good job. Not just for myself, but for you all. I really wanted, especially Chris, who wasn't a movie maker, but wanted this message of finances given, and you wanted to make sure that this character empowered that young man to grow. And by the time we get to the end, especially that scene in the office, what you see in film is one thing, but what was happening right there at that moment was really touching. And it was just nice to see, and that's why I keep bringing up the black men, because there's so many images of black men doing movies that are not that tender and supportive. You know, if something like that's happened, it's got to be something crazy going on behind it. No, this was genuine. This is teacher-student relationship, older man, young man relationship, advisor to advisee relationship, and it was solid, and it was good. And I can't applaud you all enough for making sure that message got out that way, whether you knew it or not. The way you presented it, and the fact that you had two leading men that happened to be men of color, right? Playing these roles was empowering. And I hope that the community that gets to watch this, it feels the same way I do. So kudos and cheers to you, Chris.
Hey, I really appreciate that. And like I said, NAHEEM, I really appreciate tremendously all that you gave to the project. It really shows. Love your performance. Love the personality that you naturally have that spoke through the performance and your spirit. And it just means a lot, you know. Now I want to touch on something you brought up. You're an educator. Do you mind talking about what you teach and kind of how not only that has gotten you to where you are today, but kind of how that influenced your role?
Well, I come from a family of teachers. First of all, I'm from Cuba. I came from Cuba in 1968 with my mother, my grandmother, my aunt. My mother got into ministry. My whole family was very deep in religion, but my mother became an educator in ministry. My grandmother and my aunt both became Boston Public School teachers. My grandmother retired and became an entrepreneur. My aunt went on to Florida and got into the Florida school system there, retired after 25 years as an assistant principal, an award-winning assistant principal. So I never wanted to be an educator, but it became my calling. Put me in a room with some young people and an opportunity to teach a particular subject or whatever that is, and I'm in heaven. I teach acting, I teach theater. And I also had the opportunity to be a dean of students. The thing about a dean of students, which a lot of young people run into me today, now that they're older, giving me love and hugs and say, you were important, you mattered, and thank you. And that's a very big deal to me. And what helped me with Gardner, that part came easy. The teaching part, the working, the teacher part, that was really easy. That was the economic teaching, like I teach theater, right? I don't teach math or science. So I was like, But the teaching part made it easy, and my experience as a teacher made it easy to embrace Gardner.
All right. Well, I got some questions. Let me pull those out.
Okay.
What would you say?
You might as well keep that phone out. You got a lot of questions.
Yeah,
You might as well,
it doesn't look good.
no, it doesn't matter. This is live and direct, brother.
Hey,
You know,
man, you gotta
we have-
accept that, right?
And nowadays, people are doing speeches and sermons with their phone out.
Well, what would you say? No, it still looks weird with the phone in the crotch. What would you say, in your words, Money Game is about, and who is your character? Who is Professor Gardner?
Professor Gardner would be the wizard in Lord of the Rings, right? He's the guy-
Gandalf.
Gandalf. He shows
Yes.
up and he reminds folks of what they are capable of doing and guiding them to do it, because he didn't give James anything except knowledge at the end of the movie, right? James did all the work, right? But you know, Daniel's character did all the work. He just guided them. Money Game is about choices and responsibility. We had a lead actor who lost the love of his life. Now he's got the other loves of his life, his children, and not just any children, 2 daughters. So you have a man with 2 daughters who luckily had a sister who was very supportive, right? And who wanted to be more than what he was and wanted to make sure that he could provide for his kids. But more than that, he wanted to be happy. Money Game was about finding happiness without the money, or at least with the money, but not making the money the point, right? Because if you're in the pursuit of money all the time, you're not going to be happy. He found happiness. He found something like he wanted to sell timber and cut timber, but he realized that he could make money from the assets that were around him, and he could still be happy and take care of his family. And the fact that throughout this whole movie, the theme was finding love and finding happiness and loving the people that were there for you. So Money Game is about not just money, but it's about knowing how to play the game and not get caught up in it, right? Not get trapped in it. Money Game is about reaching your dream, finding your dreams, and pursuing it, and know that you can do anything you want to do if you put your mind to it. Finally, when we get to the main character decides to make a move. He wants to follow his dream. And following your dream is scary. I have been an actor all my life, but I've been an educator. I've worked with young people most of my life. When I decided that I wanted to do acting, or this profession of mine, which is teaching and workshopping and doing stuff like this, I knew I was taking a risk. I knew it was a scary risk. I knew it wasn't going to be it's tough. We're trying to sell this movie, right? And it's like, and there are days where there's peanut butter and water in the refrigerator, but you better walk out of your house like you eat steak and potatoes all the time. There's got to be a certain level of confidence to say, no matter what happens, I'm going to keep doing this. And there's not a day that goes by where I say, is today the last day I'm going to be an actor? Am I going to go and work for Eversource or N-Star or something, because you need finances. You need money. You need money to survive, but money does not bring you happiness. And I think Money Game taught us that money didn't bring you happiness. It's your pursuit of your dream and what you want to achieve that would make you happy.
How old were you when you started acting? Officially?
As a professional actor, the first time I got paid for doing a play, I was in Boston Youth Theater. And that's when I was told, once you get paid for doing what you do, for being an actor, you're now a professional. But in the last 10 years, I completely went self-employed teaching artist and full-time actor. And it was a little late in my life to do it, when there was probably opportunities to leave town and go somewhere else where it might have been more lucrative. But when I made that decision, it's because I wanted to be happy. And I think that's what the main character was struggling with. He wanted to be happy. He wanted to love his kids, but he wanted to find some happiness and do something that made him happy. Ever since I've been doing this, I don't go to work every day. I love what I do. I'm happy doing what I do. So right now I'm working, and I'm very happy to be working. And I came across some good work. But the reality of life is, when I started, I think when I really made the attempt to really give it a run hard, I was about 26 years old. but I still had to work another job because in Boston, it wasn't like movies was coming down the road. That situation with movies coming down the road heavy happened in the last 10 years, right? So I jumped on the bandwagon when I had his rhythm until we found these strikes and things of that nature happening. COVID changed. I mean, right before COVID, there was like 5 projects. I thought I was on my way, but I still stuck to it. So the love of the art, the love of the work that I do, because my work and what I do heals people. Whether I'm teaching, acting, or coaching a young person, or just being an advisor about what to do with your career in the industry, I found myself feeling fulfilled. Like I told my mother's a minister, and I told my mother, that's your ministry, this is mine, working with young people, working with people that just want to improve themselves. And the fact that I have been essential to so many lives, and I have been a very important tool to a lot of, not just for myself, but to a lot of people, it gives me pleasure. And the fact that I can make $1 off of it every now and then, it gives me a bigger smile too, right? Because they said, if you love what you do, you never go to work. I don't go to work, I just love what I do, and I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunity to do this. And it's been a rough road. I mean, it's not easy, it's still not easy. We're sitting here trying to promote this movie. We're still not, no one's calling me saying, we have a $10 billion movie that we want to give you and we're going to pay you. And I hope that one day comes. But the fact that I can look back and look at the material that I've worked on, the people that I've worked with, the opportunity to just find joy in what I do, I can smile. I'm sitting here looking at this poster going, wow, who would ever thought, right? 10 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that I've had this opportunity. I wanted it, but you gave it to me. You did. And I'm glad that I delivered. Because you're sitting here telling me how wonderful I was. So we did the damn thing, as they say.
We did it, man. We did it. You bring up something very interesting. You feel you're a healer, and that's one of the many adjectives I would use to describe you. Do you feel that your purpose is kind of being a sage, being in this crazy, wild, chaotic world we're in? Do you feel that you were always just from like a young age meant to just help people, meant to heal the pain, meant to be this kind of sage figure that's a bit selfless in the sense that you want to help others? Obviously, you want to keep growing and succeeding, but I've always seen your nature to really be, let me help others, then help myself.
Which sometimes is a problem. Putting others before yourself is always a problem, right? You're supposed to take care of yourself and then take care of others. But yeah, I think all my life that's been my calling. Like I said, I never wanted to be a teacher. I grew up in a household full of teachers and ministers and faith people, faith-based folks, and I didn't want any parts of it, man, But I couldn't help it. It was my calling. It was the one place.
What switched? Like, what happened that you're like, all right, I need to do this? How old are you, and like, what incident?
I was young. I was a b-boy doing the breakdance during the '80s. I was a breakdancer, and when I started breakdancing, and I'm only going to say breakdance because it's the language there, but when I found my b-boyism, and I found that through my art I could heal and help others, and I found my niche, I said, this is what I want to do. When I was walking downtown Boston in the '80s to battle the floor lords, right?
You were a dance battler? You would battle people?
I was a part of the Unique Dominoes, baby. HBO, Homeboys Only. And we was dead serious. There was 100 people. It was with 100 people walking behind me. We was going to have a battle with another group walking downtown Boston to find this abandoned section in the station to battle. And
wow.
When I looked back and I said, somebody, I saw you in the street corner, you was with these kids, they're telling my parents, he was down Dudley, hanging out. But I was hanging out, but I was also teaching and helping and talking to young people. And I was using my art to do that. When I realized that I had that gift, there was no stopping. And when you say, well, how old was I? I don't know, because that revelation happened so many times throughout my life. When I felt very worthless and felt like I wasn't good at anything, and then have a young person stop you in the street and embrace you because you touched them. I said, that's my ministry. And I wouldn't change that for anything in the world. I would love to have more money. Yes, I would love to have this and that. But more importantly, I'm glad that I have what I have, which is some love and the opportunity to touch somebody and change their life. And they change mine. Because it's got to be an exchange. You can't just feel like you're boom, 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 boom. No, there's got to be an exchange. So because there's some people that'll suck you dry because you're nice, and you're a healer, and you're a giver. And I've been in that situation. And I can't blame them. I set myself up for that. But I love who I am. I love how I am. Sometimes I don't always like myself, but I love myself. And I love what I do. And like I said, I'm glad that I'm an instrument that the Supreme Architect could use to touch people and change lives. And I've done that. And my mother told me the other day, own who you are. And I'm owning it right now, today. I am who I am, and I love that all about me. And I wouldn't change a thing. I'm currently, if I can talk about it, I'm currently working on a film called Thickly Settled, where I'm this astrophysicist that wants to go back in time. He's building a time machine, go back in time to save his wife. As brilliant as he was, he also lost so much. He was lost, but you look at him and people are like, he's crazy, he's nuts, but he's brilliant, but he's crazy. Look at him, he's smart. He's talking about building a time machine, and he actually did it, right? What I also learned about this movie and Money Game is what you see is not always what you get. Don't take it for granted that because somebody might look like they're not walking around with the latest outfit or the latest sneakers. Don't assume that they don't have the financial capability to do so. Don't assume that they're just a drunk and somebody that gets high and walks around talking crazy, because that person might be the person to say, I know somebody who people assume they were nuts and crazy, but when I started to listen to that individual, I was like, oh, this individual's dropping pearls. Don't judge somebody because of how they look or how they sound. Listen to somebody's heart. My friend today, my best friend Malika told me today, she said, your interviews are great, but you have a tendency to interrupt. Take the time to really listen to what they're saying and respond. And which I found myself in this conversation really listening and waiting. And as long as you keep learning, you keep living. Wow, I like that. As long as you keep learning, you keep living.
Yeah, I like that, man. You've been very inspiring, There's so much that I want to go into. One thing we haven't touched on is you're also a public speaker. Clearly, you're public speaking now, but that's something I learned pretty early on when we were talking about getting you involved with Money Game.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come to be? How did you become this public speaker, and if you don't mind getting into it, an activist?
I think it's my upbringing. I think it's the community that I grew up in. And I think it was organic. I don't think it actually turned on. I think what was happening is that it was growing inside of me. And when the opportunity came for me to actually be who I am, when the opportunity presented itself, I took advantage. I just rolled with it. But I don't actually know when it happened. I think it's always happened. I think I've always been that person. I think I was very quick to advocate for others, no matter what. I remember in high school, somebody was beating up on this kid. I think his name was Ralph, a Spanish kid. And he was a little different, a little sensitive. And these guys went to pick him. He was like, no, you're not gonna do that. Because something about the underdog that I always loved, and something about the person that will stand up for the kid that's getting pushed around. There's something about protecting people that's important to me. I don't want to see oppression. I've experienced it myself so many times. I've experienced being bullied. I've experienced that, and if I could champion for someone, for myself, but for someone, I will. It doesn't take. I don't think twice about saving somebody's life, if I can put it that way, right? It's just in me. So I think I've been who I am all my life, and I think what has happened in my life, it's like a river. The river's already carved out its course. So I think that this course of mine is already carved out, and I just got to ride it through.
Like every time you speak, I feel like you speak in poetry. Like I feel like I speak in riddles, and I don't mean to, but I feel like you speak in poetry.
I don't always feel that way. Sometimes I think I just ramble off. I listen to my heart. All I got is my heart and my goodness. I don't have the intention to be a wrongdoer. I've done a lot of wrong, but I don't really want to, not purposely. I don't want to, I'm not a thief. I won't steal from you. I can't kill you. I'm not a killer. I don't want to abuse you. I want to be a hero. I've always wanted to be a hero, and I think I'm being really honest with myself right now and vulnerable by saying that, because I don't want to, no, but I always wanted to be a hero. That's why I used to watch a cartoon back when I was a kid called Underdog. And
I think I remember that. All right.
Underdog was a dog that nobody thought could do anything, but he was saving the world. He was the superhero. Have no fear, Underdog is here, right?
I remember that.
And I always, like even Shazam, when I was coming up watching Shazam, this kid, Shazam, and he, from ancient history, gets this power and he could save the world. I think my mother's a minister of mine. I think my whole family was has been a part of service and serving. And as much as I didn't want that calling, it is my calling. And I'm glad. I'm very glad that I am who I am. And there was a time I wanted to change that because I was young and didn't know, and I wouldn't trade me for nothing in the world.
I wish to be there one day, and I hope that for everyone, Has anyone ever said that you come off like the voice of reason? Like you kind of come off like the Jiminy Cricket, from Pinocchio, that's like the positive, kind of the good angel, if you will. You got the devil, I would say kind of like the Bryson, so to speak, and then you got like the NAHEEM, the angel.
The James, right? I keep calling him James. I don't know what it's James. I have to make that.
But even James, James had all this heart, has all this ambition, but NAHEEM, or I should say Professor Gardner, the character you play, just flipped that switch, and I just feel like, and I point for myself, we all need that. And as much as there's not going to be a knight in shining armor to save any of us, and it's ourselves, it would just, sometimes be cool to have like a little NAHEEM voice anytime that we're down. We just need a little motivation, a little like spark in our step,
Sometimes the NAHEEM doesn't even know he has the NAHEEM voice, Sometimes, and I'm human, I doubt myself all the time. I just want to come from a place of authenticity. I have a guilty conscience, so I'm not very good at doing things because my brain and my consciousness will poke at me. I have been told that I'm a voice of reason. I also have been told that I like to listen to myself, which probably is true in some cases. Not all cases, but in some cases. Thank you for saying that. I'm glad that you see that in me, and I will receive what you're giving me. And I'll keep that in my mind. I'll keep that conscious that somebody actually out here actually thinks I'm a voice of reason. I try to be the voice of reason. I really do. I really, really do.
If I get vulnerable for a second, I want to just hear your thought. I'm always about learning, being better, and I make mistakes, but I feel like if I learn from my mistakes, that mistake can be a lesson and not just a mistake. As I move forward as a filmmaker, director, artist, do you have any advice for something that I could do to be a better director, a better filmmaker, or be just a better visionary for the next project?
I'm gonna tell you something that I'm learning right now in my life. Learn to listen. Learn to really hear the people that you're working with. You're like me. I can be all over the place. I had ADHD when I was a kid. I was in a classroom addressing that issue. I could walk from here to there and have changed my mind 15,000 times. So I think be consistent. You are considerate. You are passionate. So those things are there. You care. So that's already there. I think it's just listening and being considerate and being open-minded, which I think you are. So I'm not going to add that to it. But I think if there was any advice, just listen and be considerate more, a little more considerate, because you are considerate. You are. I came all the way to Turner's Fall because you called, and I could have said I'm busy, which I am. But
you're working on a film, literally right now.
Yes, and my third film in Western Massachusetts.
Yeah, shout out to Western Mass. He's working on a film here, just towns away from where Money Game was shot.
Yeah, so I love this part of the world. I love the people in this part of the world. They've shown me nothing but love. But yeah, my advice to you is just be open-minded. Try to stay focused, because you're like me. You know, a lot of different thoughts come in your mind, and the one that sounds the best you got. You know, it's like I'm teaching a class and then I find another idea. You can't do that to people, right? People can't jump with you all the time, you know? So try to be grounded and breathe. Breathe, brother. Somebody told me the other day, how you doing? I said, trying to stand still. Trying to stand still, and I'm like, wow. But standing still is doing the knowledge. Knowledge is the foundation. It's the first principle of all things. So do the knowledge. Be observant. Listen with care. Be consistent. Follow through. And I'm not just telling you that, I'm telling myself that. So the advice I'm giving you is the advice I'm giving myself. Because you did a movie, brother. You pulled this whole thing together. You pulled everybody that needed to make this movie happen. You're a young man that listens to his father, loves his father, which is a beautiful thing. You love your parents, and which is important. A lot of people don't like their parents. That's a big deal. You got a heart. You care. And you just want to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. So there's a lot of things already in place. I don't need to tell you anymore. I think time and in situations will teach you how to be better you, a better director, a better producer. So I thank you for asking me my advice on what you can do to be better, but I think you're on the path for it. And if there's anything I can say is just listen, be consistent, and be considerate.
I appreciate that. I want to touch on the fatherhood aspect. You know, I really appreciate that. My parents do mean a lot to me, and parents, regardless of the relationship that we may have with them, I feel, let's be selfish for a second. If we didn't have parents, we would not exist, factually, you know? But I want to say fatherhood and parenting is a big aspect of Money Game, especially being a single widowed father that
which we don't see all the time. We don't see that. We look at the world and we focus on the single mothers, and which I applaud to all the single mothers out there. Applause and love to all of them. But there's also a lot of men out here that are taking care of their children by themselves that we don't acknowledge. We don't. And I love that about this movie. That's why I said it was important, because whether you realize it or not, that single father who just happens to be black was more empowering than anything else. The impact of him being responsible, taking care of his family, and wanting to do the right thing for his family, for his children. And no matter what he did, he always considered his kids. And I thought that was just beautiful. We have a lot of hurt people in the world. Even though we've been very loved and cared for, we've also been hurt, because parenting don't come with a blueprint. You know, it doesn't come with a direction book. You know, there are some things that you're taught, and there are some things that you learn. I, as a parent, have made many mistakes as a father. I wish I could take back, but I was young and I was learning, and I also, it wasn't intentional to make those mistakes, right? They were mistakes that happened because I didn't know. But intentionally, I'm in love with my children. I'm in love with them. They're beautiful, they're excellent. It doesn't matter how they feel about me or whatever. It's none of their business how I love them. I love them because they're mine, and they're mine. My children are mine. Yes, they got mothers, but they're mine. You know, and that's always been my attitude about it. But I'm also blessed to have women who I was able to make these beautiful children with that have been some great mothers to their kids. I wouldn't have traded their mothers for nothing in the world. And I was so blessed, and my children are so blessed to have the mothers that they have. So parenting is not easy. If you plan to be a parent one day, which I hope you do, because I think you'd be a great dad.
Thank you.
I think you'd be a great dad. I think you'd be so into your kid that it would be, I think you would be James. I think you'd be a great dad, yeah.
Really appreciate that.
Yep.
Do you have any money game stories that you want to share?
When you say that, what does that mean, money game stories? 'Cause you're the director, so I want to know, what do you mean, Mr. Director?
All right, well, here's a money game story. I'll tell you. All right,
Be careful.
Actually.
Be careful.
Oh, man.
Yeah, be careful. Because when you start telling those kind of stories, you're feeding the masses things they don't need to know.
What is a money game story that you would want the masses to know?
That I was playing Chris. And money, I don't really have a bad or good story about, I mean, my experience on Money Game was very positive. I was treated with a lot of love and respect. I had a lot of support. So I don't have any dirt. I really wasn't that involved with everybody because it was just me, Gardner, coming in there doing my thing until I had to talk to Daniel. Daniel and I go back several movies. And so working with him, and he recommended me to you, I believe that's one of the, so it confirmed what you was looking at. So working with Daniel was, that was very special and it was easy. But my biggest challenge with Money Game was getting those lines down. Now, you want a Money Game story? The real Money Game story is that it was very hard to memorize those lines. I have had, and for an actor, I have challenges with memory. For an actor, my job is to read and memorize. I'm a very lazy reader, and Money Game changed a lot in me because I couldn't stay out of reading it. I read Money Game probably more than I read anything else in my life.
Wow.
I did, because it was big. And that first day in there, dropping that monologue, I remember when it started, and I kept rehearsing and going over the lines to the point where I felt like I may have rehearsed my performance out of, you can rehearse your performance sometimes. Sometimes you can rehearse so much that your performance is, sometimes you just got to get it a couple of times and leave it alone. But I was just very concerned that I wasn't going to remember lines. And I didn't want to be that person. And that was my biggest fear.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And again, I feel you crushed it. I feel that we all have a lot of fears, and I appreciate you saying that as somebody who has trouble reading myself. I'm dyslexic.
Me too. Clinically, I was put in a classroom, diagnosed the whole bit.
I didn't know I was dyslexic until I was 28, talking to Chris Galizio. Not trying to out him, another dyslexic homie literally told me
Who's successful.
Yes.
Who's successful.
Very much so. And he literally told me that I'm just like him, I'm dyslexic. I was 28, had no idea, but then got confirmation that I am. So how do you deal with that as an actor? Like you said, memorizing lines is a part of the job. How do you deal with being dyslexic and being such a phenomenal actor like yourself and being able to have these monologues, have huge chunks? What do you do?
It's very hard. It's very scary. One of the reasons probably why I don't do a lot of theater is because of that. Finding what I like about doing film is that if you forget a line, somebody will feed you. And if you can't remember the line, somebody say, read the line, we'll put it in your mouth later, right? In theater, I did King Henry II, and I have moments where I'm in the middle of it, and one little thing throws me off, and now everything's blank. I can't see the pages, I can't find the words, and there's an audience looking at me, and I got an actor in front of me. It's very scary, and it's very hard. So you develop different skills, a lot of blocking, a lot of physical triggers. You might say a line, and you have to say it this way, because when you do this gesture, it might kick in the line. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of, which is why I teach different tricks to how to trigger line and memorization. Because in my case, it's not, I don't want to study my lines. In my case, sometimes it just blanks. Sometimes it's blank, like you don't know where it is.
What do you do when that happens? Like on a stage, you make a good point. Film, you can edit it, you can get the line. What do you do on stage?
You breathe, you stop, you breathe, and you pick up from wherever you go, and then you go back and you look at those lines and you try to make sure that they stay in your head. It's a very scary and embarrassing situation when you go blank. And it's unfortunate for the other actors because you're leaving them in a place where they got to figure out a whole lot. It's like a domino effect. You throw off one line, you throw everybody off. So it's a big responsibility. But when your memory starts, and the memory thing it gets deeper because not just you can't remember lines. Why can't you remember lines? What's going on in your head? What's going on with you? So what I have done in the past, like I said, different triggers, breathing, stop, and pick up from wherever I am and keep it going. The good part about it is I had supporting people around me that were willing to help. But I walked away from the stage the first time that happened. So I would never want to do that to actors again. I never want to put myself in a position where I blank and I can't remember and I injure a scene or I injure another actor's performance. And it's happened, and it's a terrible feeling. And it's even more scarier when you can't remember, wondering what's going to happen to me in years to come. Is this going to progress? Is this going to be a real problem? And in some cases, yes. And in some cases, no. Also, my advice to other people that have those issues, think about some of your habits. Do you sleep enough? Do you rest enough? Do you drink enough water? Do you do enough brain exercises? There are things you can't do to help. And I think, the character I played with on stage, Elmore, had so many lines. One scene was 8 pages of dialogue, And I can't remember, but then I had to stop and say, yes, you can, because you remember quite a bit. It's just a matter of making sure you could find a trigger to help you remember certain words or certain lines. So you got to develop different skills to do that. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, so you use triggers. Whether that's a physical trigger, which I'd say physicality has always helped me with that.
People with our issues talk a lot with their body and their hands for that very reason. Different things trigger. So I always, when I was having trouble with a particular line, I had to, what is the bridge? What do I find to connect to help me? And sometimes it worked 95% of the time, but that 5% that it didn't work was a rough one. And it's really embarrassing, and nobody wants to be embarrassed. I remember saying to Ryan Reynolds, was it Free Guy or Spirited? He's carrying a whole movie, dialogue after dialogue. I got a couple of lines, and I couldn't remember one word. And I said, "Ryan, am I saying?" Because he's also co-wrote it. Right? Am I saying this or that? And he said to me, "I don't know. I don't get paid to remember other people's lines."
What?
And I laughed. And I was like, "Oh shit! Oh wow,
wow!"
And he was right. But it wasn't so much. I need to remember. I was asking sincerely, like I couldn't remember it, And I'm asking somebody who's carrying a movie for one word when I only had a couple of sentences, right? It's that kind of stuff. So you make an effort to make sure you know your lines and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. With Money Game, I rehearsed all the time, every day. I read it, rehearsed it, anywhere, everywhere. Same thing I'm doing like with this movie I'm working in now. I know the words, I know the lines, but I'm also got to be in the scene with the person to find that connection so I could visualize the lines. But I rehearse, I read, talk about it. I was driving here, I pulled over just because I couldn't remember one thing, or why am I saying that? That's the other thing. Ask your character, why is the character saying it that way? Why are they not saying it differently? They're saying it that way for a reason. Once you get that in your head and you understand that, the line falls in place.
So finding the motivation of each moment has been a very great help for you to be able to deal with being dyslexic, deal with the challenges with reading and retaining of the words.
Yes, all the way. You've said it perfect. And that was the only way that I am still surviving in this business. And because I want to play judges, and I want to play lawyers, and I want to carry a movie. Like Money Game was probably one of the first times I got to carry a movie along with other people, because Gardner had dialogue.
The most dialogue.
Well, I find
in terms of to be clear, biggest monologues, I should say.
Yes.
Obviously, Daniel Washington as James had the most dialogue, but
He had monologues. Same thing
Gardner
with
had
my
the most
character in
monologues.
a play that I find myself, for somebody with memory challenges, to have these long-winded monologues and long pieces. And it's funny, like, why me? But I'm glad, because I need the challenge. Because one day, I might not be able to remember nothing, right? So, work hard, rehearse hard, do whatever you need to do to trigger certain thoughts and certain words, and I think you'll be all right, you know? It's helped me so far, and it's also hurt me sometimes. It has, you know? Can't remember a line no matter how hard, and you start feeling stupid. You start really, you gotta take care of yourself mental health-wise when you have academic challenges, because you can really doubt yourself and make yourself like, you know, my mother said it to me yesterday, claim who you are. And I'm being humble, no. I'm at this movie set, these people are treating me like a star. And my mother said, you are a star, claim it. And not in a sense where I gotta walk around and, you know, let me sign my name and don't speak to me. No, I'm a star because people love what I do and love me. And it's okay for me to receive that love. And it's okay for me to acknowledge that I worked very hard to be in this place. And if I ever become as big as Denzel or any of those guys, that's fine. You know, that's fine. And I welcome it. But I never want to get so big that I can't walk down the street. Denzel can't go to McDonald's at lunch break after working on a project. He can't. He said, I'm famous. I can't go nowhere. And Brad Pitt's another one. So, you know, choose what kind of fame you're looking for. I'm looking to be a good actor that directors and producers will seek for to come do the work because they know I'm going to deliver their work. I'm going to give them what they're looking for. And if that gives me the success that I deserve, I will receive it. But I never want to get to a place where I can't go outside, or I can't get on a bus, or I can't walk down the street, or I got to have people around me to protect me because somebody want to snatch me up. I don't ever want to be that person. I don't ever want that.
So one of the things that we dealt with during the shooting, we filmed early 2022, deep into the heat of the COVID pandemic. And I will say, COVID mirroring what we all dealt with was an element of Money Game in terms of the world that the characters had to also deal with, the challenges. Let me ask you this, how do you feel COVID, especially in 2022, some of the challenges that we had to deal with during the making of Money Game related to Money Game, and just kind of what was your experience with COVID?
COVID was very scary. I think the film industry was the best example of how to deal with COVID at work. The industry really nailed it. I mean, they were on top of it. Testing, masking, section off, boom. And I don't know if I'm going to answer the question correctly, because I'm still trying to figure out how the COVID and Money Game, there was restrictions, and you had to overcome those restrictions or work within those restrictions. Where Money Game was the same, there are rules. And there were rules that, not just the movie and making the movie and making the movie during a very scary time, but in the world of money, in the world, there are rules, there are things that you have to do to survive. We did what we needed to do to survive. Everybody was very responsible. People weren't careless. You wore your mask when you needed to. You know, I'm looking at the old pictures, and Jane and I sitting there, Danny and I sitting there with masks and lingering around our neck. We wear the mask. The connection between Money Game and COVID, and what did they represent, and what did they have in common? What they had in common, that there were restrictions that you can't overcome. And there was things that you had to do to be responsible to make sure you overcame them. Does that make some sense?
Hey, I poorly worded the question, so I think your answer was phenomenal. No, I love that. I love that. Outside of Money Game, on any film set, do you have any wild, fun, embarrassing, crazy stories on any film?
I just told you one with Ryan Reynolds.
I know, I was going to say, that was a nice little...
And I don't want to go anymore, because that was, even saying that was like embarrassing, because he was right. He was right. Even though he wrote it, he could say, oh, the word is and. But he's like, I don't know. I don't get paid to memorize other people's lines. He was right. You're getting paid. Know your shit. Excuse my English, but know your lines. No, right?
To be fair, and I totally get that, there are actors like Robert Downey Jr. who is very successful, one of the top actors who has openly said for various reasons that he doesn't always memorize the lines on his films, and he gets paid astronomically more than the majority of any actor. Not calling anything negative about that, all different approaches, but do you feel any way for that type of approach? Because he has an earpiece on that he said in some of his films, when you don't see his ear, has an earpiece, somebody's feeding
I
the
found
lines.
out recently a lot of actors have done that. Now, Downey is an amazing actor.
Agreed.
He could sell popcorn to corn on a cob. No, he's smoking. And to hear you say that gives me relief. Like, wow, he has that problem, right? I'm not big enough for somebody to say wear an earpiece. I'm not in a position where I could get away with that. He's in a position where he can get that because he sells tickets. He's a big name. I, or you, or both, we have to do the work. There's no other way around it. Maybe later on down the line when you get like, Danny Glover, not the young one, the old one. They said when he did that movie about the elephant, right? The soldiers had to take the elephant. I can't remember the name, but he had an earpiece. He couldn't remember his line. Somebody had to feed him his line. But he was such a good actor, you didn't know that. I didn't know that until somebody actually told me that. So I don't know if it's even answering the question, but
Different strokes for different folks.
different strokes for different folks is exactly right.
You also make a good point that part of the job is to know your lines, but if you're at the caliber that you're able to make studios massive monies and create franchises,
And you can't remember a line, they're gonna make sure you get that earpiece.
and that makes sense that would be a different scenario because you are the movie, you're selling all the tickets, you're making them the money.
I don't remember my lines, I get fired. I get replaced. And that stays at the tip of my head all the time. I don't want to get fired, I don't want to get replaced. So study hard, memorize hard, do your very best. And if you are, the difference between stage and film is that stage, if you forget a line, someone can feed you and you go back and do it. Stage, you forget a line, you can ruin the entire show. You can blank out and not know your lines, not know where to go, and not know what to do, and now the audience knows you're in that position. Now it's not only embarrassing for you, the audience is embarrassed for you. So I stay in my lane. I do what I think is safe for me right now. Will I do another play again? Sure, more than likely. I love acting. I love, I did it all my life as a kid, role playing. It's my thing, I love it. Would I take on a character that has an overwhelming amount of lines? I would think twice, and if I say yes, more than likely I'm up for the challenge. With theater, I love teaching theater. I love working in theater. I think theater is the legs of all actors. If you're going to be an actor, you better study theater. You go to film school, that's fine, but you better study theater. The basis of acting, learning the 4 instruments of an actor, those things are important.
What's the 4 instruments of an actor?
Body, voice, imagination, and text. You got your body, you got your voice. You have to use your imagination. Let's say you walk into an audition and you got 3 lines. You got to use your imagination based on the text of what's happened to make sense of it. So imagination is important for an actor. It's your imagination that carries you through. You have to imagine, one, that you're in this place. You have to imagine that you are this person, and you have to use your imagination to fill out those places that don't reveal themselves easily. So imagination is very important. This is why there's a lot of theater games to help you build your imagination. I walk into an audition based on the text, based on the scene. I gotta use my imagination to make sense of it. And you walk in, you got 1 line. There's all this dialogue before, all this dialogue, you got 1 line. You gotta make sense of it. You don't know what's going on. Many times I walked into it, and then I finally get the script, say, oh, and I still got casted, right? Oh, this is what's supposed to happen. So Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you would like to play a judge and a lawyer. What are some other roles that you have yet to play that you just are fiending or just really want to just sink your teeth into and do? Lawyer?
One of those, you know, one of those...
corrupt lawyer or good lawyer?
I don't like playing corrupt people, believe it or not. I know that as an actor, I don't have that choice, and if somebody paid me to be a bad guy, and I've been a bad guy, I think. I've been a bad guy in plays. Elmore from King Elliot II was a good guy, but a bad guy. He's a crook, he's a hustler, you know? And he's done some things, you know, and he's hurt some people, and he's killed some people, right? Yeah, the lawyer. I think lawyers. I think any character that is desperate to find a solution is that's how I'll leave it. Any character that is desperate to find a solution that has a lot to say is. But yeah, a lawyer, playing a lawyer or a judge, you know, one of those parts that are like, or like, have you ever seen Suits?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't know if I got the chops for it. I'll be honest, I don't know.
You got the chops for that.
How about this? I don't know if I got the memory for it. I don't know if I got the memory for it because you're worried trying to remember the lines and trying to remember what you need to say. But characters that have a real important message, any character that, like the character I'm playing now, I don't have a lot to say, but what I'm saying is very important.
Now I'm interested, you don't want to play a bad character, so I got two parts to this. One, what about a character that has lived a long enough life that maybe they did stuff in their past that would be considered villainous, but they're now looking to turn a leaf, they're looking to...
I've played those kind of characters, and I love those kind of characters, yes.
Okay, but you're not interested in a character that either knows he's evil or is doing evil things.
Unless it's giving a message. Unless unless there's a message that needs to be given through this character that's important. If that makes any sense. Like, I don't want to play a rapist. I don't want to play a child molester. I don't want to play an abusive husband. I don't want to play a rapist or child molester because I work with kids.
So your brand. So
Yeah.
It feels like your brand, that's interesting because you don't want to play a villain that you don't feel helps the story, right? Or that you don't feel has a message. Let me rephrase, because even characters like that, regardless of what the story
There's
is.
a lesson. I
Yeah.
think it's important for me to play a character, even if it's an evil character, a character that is delivering a message of some sort, something that needs to be told and heard. I don't want to play somebody randomly who's running around here. And, you know, yes, I'm not going to turn down money, but I don't want to play those kind of characters. I won't sell it.
How about this? The main villain, the main antagonist in Shawshank Redemption. He's not a rapist, he's not a killer, but man, is he a terrible dude. The dude that was just running the jail. Such a corrupt character. Would you play a role
Yes.
like that?
Yes, like Morgan Freeman's character?
No.
Or the other guy, the lead actor.
No, not Tim Robbins or Morgan Freeman. The
guy, they call them the sisters.
not even the
No,
sisters,
no,
because
no.
though, yeah. No, the warden.
Yes,
warden.
I would. Yes,
Again, he's not a rapist, he's not a killer,
No,
but
but
he is such a terrible individual.
but there was a message about this warden. It was. Put it this way: I could play any character I want. I just don't want to play certain characters that will tarnish my image outside of the film. I don't want to do the same. Why would you play? I remember somebody had me doing a reading, and it was a cold reading, but we're doing it, and we're doing this. There's no turning back. I come to find out that I'm playing this teacher who had an affair with a student, and I told the person that I said, "Don't ever give me a part like that again." I only did it because we couldn't back out, but I can't play those parts. One, I don't like them. Two, I'm not going to sell it very good. And three, I got kids out here that are looking at me and will ask, "Why would you play a part like that?" Now you're questioning my character. You know, so yeah, I can play a villain. Yeah, I can play a villain. I can play a good one, but I don't want to play certain villains that I think take away from my character and that I won't be able to sell. You know, I won't be able to sell.
I completely respect that and understand that.
But you got a whole essay book, a whole book of questions. You got a whole book of questions.
Well, luckily you've answered most of these, so don't worry, the book is now getting very short. We're on the last couple chapters.
Okay.
So we touched on this a little bit, but do you do other arts besides film? Like, do you still dance? Like,
I don't dance anymore because it hurts my body. I do voiceover work. I do a lot of coaching. I teach a lot. That's usually my base. Is teaching and working and coaching. I do voiceovers. I do a little bit of casting. I'm not a casting director, but I do some casting. I like to host. I host a lot of events. Hosting is my thing. I love that more than anything else.
Hosting.
Yeah, give me a microphone and a bunch of people and I'll take care of it.
Yeah, because I remember, like a year and a half ago, I saw you doing something like in the Boston Commons. You were hosting some big event there.
I host, if it was at Boston Commons, I was probably hosting the Citywide Arts Festival for Boston Public School, which I've had the gracious opportunity to do that for many years. I host a block party for the last couple of years on Washington Street down in Roxbury for Black Market called, for Black Market that has just been phenomenal. And so hosting is a lovely thing. I've hosted events at Harvard. You know, I've hosted. I one day want to host the Oscars.
That would be amazing. You host the Oscars, I'd watch the whole show.
Yeah, I would love to host the Oscars one day.
I would hope to be there. Actually, I don't just watch it. I want to be there.
You're darn right. Yeah. So hosting and outside of that, I could work at schools and all that, but for the most part, artistically, everything I mentioned is pretty much what I can do. Directing, coaching, voiceover work, hosting, anything that's people or anything serving people is
Public speaking.
Public speaking, when I'm not fumbling over words or thoughts.
Do you feel it's hard to balance acting in your social life? Like being a performer and being NAHEEM the human?
A better question would be, do you think it interrupts my family life?
All right, do you think acting interrupts your family life?
I think my career could do that. I think it has done that. I think it's interrupted. I think it's been a conflict with family responsibility and my work responsibility. I know my children, I always have in my head the day I give my Oscar speech, and I have to mention that this award is my children's as much as mine because they've sacrificed having their dad with them all the time or dad being available all the time because I'm doing this from scratch. You know, Artie Shore and Entourage, you say, I go where the beatings are, babe, strip bars, and what he say, you go where you need to go to do what you gotta do. It's my day off and I wanted to sleep, but I have to come do this because we have to promote this movie.
And I sincerely appreciate it.
But we have to promote the movie. It's part of the gig. It's what we do. We made this choice to be in this business, and these are the sacrifices that you have to make. You have to be present. You have to go where you need to go. You have to connect with the people you need to connect. Sometimes you're connecting with people that you don't need to connect with, but in your head you think you have to, until you find out later on that you could have done something different, learning lessons. So balancing my social life is my work. But balancing my work with my family life is where it gets challenging sometimes. Because while you're doing this, at whatever time you need to do it, family's like, where is he? I like to see him. And when he's here, I like him to be present. Not here and on his phone working or in his head thinking of lines, present.
I have a lot of challenges at that one myself. I will tell you, I feel like I'm always on film in some element, whether I'm thinking of a story, thinking of ways to create the story better, to promote it. And I will say that's really important what you just said, because I feel that is a big challenge I have, balancing that and being present in real life outside of set or creating a set or the story or scripting.
When it's family time, be in that moment. Just like you're in the film and you're in that moment, you gotta be in your family time moment. But that's part of also my ADHD, I'm talking to you and my mind is thinking about 15 other things at the same time. It's learning how to stay focused, So the advice I was giving you is the same advice I give myself. Stay very focused. Learn to listen. Be thoughtful in your response. Be considerate of other people in their time. Same thing I'm telling you is what I'm telling myself. Unfortunately, this is we live in Massachusetts where it's not New York and LA where there's movies and films everywhere. We're in a place where there's there's small pickings and survival of the fittest. Grabs in the barrel, so to speak. Who's gonna get on top? Who's gonna, and unfortunately I don't want to step on anybody to do it. Have I? I don't know. I'm sure there's some casualties of war out there, but for the most part, we're really trying to do something that in a place that is not easy. The fact that I filmed 3 movies in Western Massachusetts, and I don't mean like some little movie, I mean tight, professional, full-fledged, the whole works. It's impressive. You come out here and you see these nice little rules section, think people aren't doing a whole lot, and people are doing stuff, and you got some real, UMass Amherst is not far from here. There's a lot of educated people and people that are really working in the industry that live out here, and I can only imagine if they're not creating their own work, how difficult it must be. Everybody that I met out here, they're creating their work. You, the current party included, you're creating your work. So I don't have the correct answer about balance. I just know that we do what we got to do, and I hope I get to a place where I can live off of it and don't have to worry about that. And I hope it's not too late, right? Because then I'm ready now, but time has moved on, people have moved on, and some people can't get over it, right? So I just hope that the time comes where I can enjoy my family and be in that moment and not worry about what work is going to look like, because I got so much of it that I'm looking forward to the break with the family.
So this actually I feel like is very important to this next part. Hollywood. I feel like not just from the last half a decade dealing with COVID, dealing with the strikes, but the current situation now, 2025, where do you feel Hollywood is? Where do you feel it's going? And more importantly, how can filmmakers in front or behind the cameras stay ahead? What advice do you feel for any actor or filmmaker wanting to break in, you would tell them? And where do you think Hollywood's headed, just so we can try to figure out the best way for us all to navigate this field?
I don't actually know where Hollywood's heading. From my position looking at Hollywood, Hollywood has become something a little unhealthy in some cases. I think the message after the strike, but during the strike and after the strike, is giving independent films the opportunity to go. The message yesterday from the Oscars was independent films are here. And the other message is go back to the movie theater. We've gotten comfortable with the streaming. It's become about making money. The fact that Money Game couldn't be on the silver screen for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, or 8 weeks, or 2 months, and had to go streaming. Everything's going streaming. The movies that we grew up in are going away little by little. The fact that thousands of theaters were closed during COVID, and after that they didn't come back, and streaming became very convenient. The fact that you could watch a movie from home and pay more money, but you could watch a movie from home, it's convenient. But there's something about community when you get up and you go to a movie to watch a film and to experience the cinematic impact that a movie has on a big screen. Hollywood, I don't know what's happening with Hollywood. I hope Hollywood finds a way to heal, because it seems like it's getting plugged with a lot of stuff that is not needed. And it also seems that it's creating who works and who doesn't, who's favored and who's not. It's not giving the little people an opportunity to work. The fact that you and I can put a movie together and can't be in a week, and we can't get studio funding because it's not what the studio wants. I mean, I can't speak to Hollywood and what's happening with Hollywood. I think Hollywood is telling us exactly what's happening to Hollywood. I think what's going on in the world, in the industry, is telling us what's happening with Hollywood. And the message from the Oscars and everything else and everything that we continue to do is that independent filmmakers are rising and should have the opportunity to rise. And if the studios see that and they start investing in these independent filmmakers, I think it's going to be a better world. Because right now it's us versus them, and they have the money and they have the power.
Very similar to the real situation of us, the 99.99% versus them, the 0.0001%.
The money game.
The money game.
The money game. A lot of stuff has happened in Hollywood, which why certain movements had to come into place. Me Too, You Too, all these other movements had to come into place because whatever was going on in Hollywood was getting nasty and scary. And I hope that Hollywood finds a way to include independent films in the world. But the reality of life is I think folks are taking matters into their own hand because people want to create good work and artwork. They don't want to always have... I get tired of watching movies where somebody's got a lot of guns, a lot of sex, and now I'm watching this movie, this great story, but let's stop because now we got to watch 5 minutes of screwing because it's what's selling. I think Hollywood has created that world. I like watching a lot of Turner Classic Movies and watching what people have gone through, and it was tough for them. Because those people were signed to a studio. They were locked in for the rest of their life. Everything that they had, the car, the house, everything, the studio provided. And it gave studios a lot of power to the point where people no longer want to be a part of that machine. And again, I'm not going to dog Hollywood because I am a part of that world. And I love what Hollywood has provided for so many of us. If it wasn't for Hollywood, we wouldn't have imagination. We wouldn't have the opportunity to let our imagination grow and want to do more. I wanted to be in movies with Denzel, and I wanted him to actually do it, right? So, and that somebody gave me the opportunity, but that's someone making the opportunity. And also the studios in Hollywood saying thumbs up or thumbs down. I just know that currently what has been seen coming from Hollywood has created a very nasty taste in a lot of people's mouths.
And do you have any advice for how a new or up-and-coming filmmaker or actor can break in even with the situation and the climate we're currently in with Hollywood and just film?
The advice I will give is advice that I've learned and I'm trying to take on now is know your business. Know what you're doing, know the ins and outs, know the laws behind it. Be prepared. Never let them outdo you. Become a very valuable asset. Whichever way that may go, whether it's being the better writer, the better actor, but know your business. I think, 95% of show business is business, and you gotta know your business. Talent is secondary in a lot of cases. Talent is secondary because I've seen people that know their business that have had a prosperous career. And I've seen people that are very talented and have gotten nowhere. I can say in some cases, we might be part of that, very talented, and no one's giving us a shot.
So we're going to give ourselves the shot. We're going to take it, Naheem.
There you go.
We're going to take
Not
it.
take it, we're doing it.
We are taking it.
We are taking it. So I think what's happening is a lot of people feel like us, which is giving Hollywood a challenge. And the fact that Hollywood, first of all, my heart goes out to everybody in California, everybody in LA, everybody that's suffered and lost to the fires. I look forward to Hollywood saying, let's bring it to the East Coast and not Canada and not Europe, which they're already doing. Marvel Comics is now in Europe, sold to Europe. A lot of movies are being done in Canada. So I don't know what's happening with Hollywood. I know that from the outside looking in, sometimes it looks pretty sad and scary. And I also know that it's abused its privilege and power. It has abused its privilege and power. but I also know that it's also granted a lot of dreams. So I got a mixed bag with it. But the one thing I will say is independent films and independent filmmakers are rising. Continue to rise. Continue to find ways to financially support your work. Get as creative as you can. And I'm talking to you. Be as creative as you can. Know your business. Be about your business and handle your business.
Well, I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you taking the time on your one day off for this busy film week to come here and do this podcast. We're one day away from the release of Money Game, which again is going to be on streaming for free on Tubi starting tomorrow, March 7th. You can also rent it or buy it on Amazon. Thank you so much. I got one more question for now, because you know I could go on forever.
Yes, you can.
But I will say, again, thank you so much, NAHEEM. What is next for you? Like, you're working on this film right now.
Thickly settled.
Thickly settled in Western Mass.
In Western Mass. Shout out to Brian and Jordan, the directors and writers of that movie. I am currently preparing to work on a few independent films, whether it be by casting or by production, being produced of some sort. So right now it's Thickly Settled. After Thickly Settled, it will be whatever's next. I don't want to say it's going to be this and that. I am working on What About Us and a few other films, but right now it's Thickly Settled. And I'm going to give it my all the rest of the week. It's such a wonderful film, such a wonderful cast, such a wonderful crew, such a wonderful production. They're really taking care of their actors. And that's the other thing. Independent filmmakers, take care of your people. As long as you take care of your people, you will be successful. You took care of us. You did. Okay? And thus, we have this movie getting ready to go streaming. Take care of your people. Be good to your people. And they'll always come. Even if you don't got a lot of money, if you take care of people, they'll come. You know, these independent films aren't paying me thousands and thousands of dollars. But the treatment and the respect and the love that I'm getting makes it worth my while to give them all I got. Money Game.
Well, thank you very much, NAHEEM.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you for having me. Thank you for sharing your movie with me. And thank you for your words. Thank you.
Thank you for shining through, man, and just being such a positive light for the film. So thank you all for watching the very first episode of Inside Money Game. We were joined by the fabulous, fantastic, spiritual, and inspirational, phenomenal actor in person, NAHEEM GARCIA. Thank you again.
How much I gotta give you for that now? Thank you again. Be good.
And enjoy the film, y'all. And thank you very much for watching this.
Peace.
Stay blessed.